Please be seated, and we invite our young people to come up for a message. Come on up, young ones. Oh. Hi, buddy. Hello. Hi, guys. Come on up. Come on up. You guys are all going to need to see my awesome drawings. I was a theater major, not an art major, okay? There's a difference. They sound similar, but they're not. All right. Now, do you guys know of any pirates? I guess we have one in our band. But anyway, sometimes pirates go to look for buried treasure, right? What do they need? They need, yes, a map. I was going to say a boat, but a map's going to work out real well. And I just happen to have a map with me. Look at that, everybody. There, I did make it. I drew it with crayon. For you guys, I go to the extreme. Crayon, okay? And on this map, where do we usually start? Do we start at the end or do we start at the beginning? The beginning. Okay, so the beginning for this one, it looks like it's right here, Brooklyn. So we go like this. What's that? What do you guys see there? What does that look like? What does that look like? Church. Church. Okay, that's a church. And then we go. What does that look like? A bird bath. Close. I am an awful artist. That is a baptismal font, just like we have in the back. But they could look like a bird bath. That's a good guess, you know? Maybe we'll get a bird bath for the next baptismal font. How about that? We'll baptize all of creation. It'll be great. Okay, so we got our our baptismal font, right? And then we go, What do you see there, guys? What does that look like? The cup with the wine in it, and what else? The bread. So we have the wine and the bread, okay? And then, what is that? You guys see that? A cross, right? Good. And we have lots of crosses all over the place here. There's a real pretty one up there, just up there too. Yeah. And then, if we go, what's that? A heart. Okay, so we start at the beginning. And we go to church, and there's baptism, and there's communion, and there's the cross, which is what we're supposed to view everything through, because we're supposed to look at the world through the eyes of Jesus. And then we have a heart. So if we do all of these things, our heart should end up all about God and God's love for the world. That's what Jesus talked about in our reading for today. He talked about our hearts, what we treasure. So if we treasure church and baptism and communion and what Jesus did for us on the cross, then what? Heart. Yes, good. Heart. Our hearts will be turned towards God. And then we'll love one another just like God called us to do. Now, do we hand out maps at church? No, but we do stuff. We get our order of service, right? That kind of shows us what we're going to do. And we go through a nice little progression. We walk through the service, and we do things that help us to remember that we are loved by God, and God calls us to love what God loves. Pretty neat, huh? All right. So just out of curiosity, who's going to win the Super Bowl? Anybody? Okay, so neither team's going to win. It's just fine with Pastor John. All right, thanks for coming up, guys. Good to see you. Don't get lost on your ways back. You don't have a map. I do. A bird bath. Okay. You guys should see this drawing. It's pretty good. She has all these snacks and she didn't even share one. All right. Well, greetings on this Super Sunday. And I know that we all really don't care about the game, and that's okay. It's all right. And if you do, that's fine. There's another large gathering. So Jesus is still at the Sermon on the Mount, okay? So that crowd is still there. So continue from where we were last week, right? He kind of did what we know as the Beatitudes. He told them all how they are blessed. And now he's doing a little bit more. He's kind of telling them how they are to pray, but also more so how they're supposed to go about being followers of God. And he does this in a really interesting way. He highlights the typical thing that you should pray for. And one of the things he hits on is debt. He talks about praying. In Matthew, we hear about debt and those that we are indebted to. See, now, debt would be a very, very familiar thing for most of these people, because a lot of them would be working for someone else, or they would be even raising crops on land that they didn't own. Kind of think about serfdom, okay? And I know that many of us are also familiar with debt. I mean, if you look at the statistics for credit card debt in this country, it's astounding. So we know what it's like to be bound and shackled to something. But Jesus was trying to make it really clear to that group that had gathered what it feels like to be free and to free others from that debt. He highlights that in the Lord's Prayer, among many other things. But it's that line at the end of our text that always seems to pop out of this reading. You've heard it, where your treasure is, your heart will also be. And a lot of people say, oh, where your treasure is, your heart is. And I don't know if you guys do this, but sometimes I like to look at my bank breakdown, and you see where your money has been spent. Where is the majority of your money going? And are these the things that we really care about? I mean, a lot of times it's going to be housing, right? A big majority of our money goes towards housing because we want to be safe, we want to be secure, we want to be warm, we want to provide for those around us that we care about, and putting a roof over their head. So a lot of our money probably goes towards that. A lot of our money probably goes into feeding ourselves and those whom we care about. It's an important thing. Our hearts, maybe we're not so excited that we have to spend money on these things, but those are things that we care about. We care about those people who are in the house with us or in the apartment, and we care about those who are being fed. So where your money is, your heart will be also. There's this great TV show, and it ended like last year, but we have 2 little kids, so we don't really get to watch things when they're on TV. And it's on Netflix, and it's called How I Met Your Mother. And it's a quirky, odd show. And if you like quirky, odd shows, it has my stamp of approval on it. Go check it out. If not, maybe it's not for you. But we spend the whole time throughout many seasons hearing about stories that are supposed to lead us to how the main character, Ted, met his kid's mother. Because he's telling them all these stories. The story of How I Met Your Mother. And there's this scene in the final season where she's talking to someone about being lost. She's talking to someone about not really knowing what she wants to, where she wants to go and what she wants to do with her life. And he asks her, what is the thing that you care the most about? And she says, ending poverty. That's a huge thing. But he tells her some really sage advice. He says, well, then everything you do going forward should be done to end poverty. And this fits right into this line of thinking. And it goes like this. If you focus and think on something, you set your mind to something, or as Soren Kierkegaard will talk about, willing the one thing. If you set your mind to something, your actions will begin to follow your thinking. And the reverse is believed to be true as well. Is that if you start doing things, if you start doing the actions, your mind will follow, and you will start to think as you do. Think like you do. So, case in point, if you say, you know what? I want to be nicer to people. You really focus on that in your mind. Like, I really want to be nicer to people. Then your actions should start to align with that. You should start to open doors. You should start to maybe volunteer. Those sort of things are going to mesh up. If you do a whole bunch of stuff aligned with an idea, your brain will start to change. And Luther talked about this as well, and there's many studies out about it showing that this actually works. And what God, through Jesus in this narrative, is telling us is that we are to set our hearts on the things of God, on the kingdom of heaven. And what does that look like? Well, he just highlighted it in the Beatitudes. Being peacemakers, being humble, loving mercy, doing acts of kindness for one another. So if we set our minds, so you can either set your mind on the things of God or start doing the things of God, and your mind will follow. Or set your brain on it. Say, you know what? This month I am going to do ... And your actions will follow. Sadly, the same can be true for things that are not so great. That are things that are not of God. But Jesus is calling us to focus on the things of God. To set our mind to think as God does, and then to act as God does. We have all these great blessings, we have all these great resources that God has granted us, that God has given us. And we are to use these resources in our lives to further the kingdom. If we think it, we can do it. And if we do it, we will think it. That's the thing about Christianity. Christianity is not just some set of ethics or some set of morals. Christianity is transformation through death and new life. Death and new life. We have to die to the old way of thinking and live into God's way of thinking. We have to die to the old ways of doing things and live into the new ways, into God's ways of doing things. Transformation. You know, it's not just a short little thing. It's not just like, I was baptized, that's good. I come to the sacrament. It's more than that. It's every day is a new day. Every day we set our mind to the things of God. What are we going to do today for the kingdom? And you know what? It's okay if we fall short. It's okay. It's going to happen. But that's no excuse to not do it. You know, it's like those classic no fear t-shirts they used to have. And I just remember one that my dad had. And he was our coach. And it said, you can't steal second with your foot on first. It's true. How can we love our neighbor fully and completely if we're all too wrapped up in ourselves. It makes sense. Every day is a new day. Every day is a new chance to change our minds and to change the things that we do. That is the blessing and the gift of Christianity. Transformation through life, through death, into new life. Amen.